Welcome back to the Balance Breakdown with me, Ian O'Neill. And we have a new person in the hot seat beside me today. Harry Powell, obviously away. He is getting married. So we wish him and Imogen congratulations. He's off tying the knot this weekend and has bigger commitments than breaking down UFC fights. But I have a great substitute coming in here. Caoilte de Barra, my co-host on the Owl Triangle podcast, is here, and we are going to put some balance back into your lives. We're going to break down each and every fight from the UFC's card last weekend. Kai France and Amir Albazi fought in a very hotly contested main event in the UFC Apex. And we will cover that fight and the rest of the card over the course of the next hour or so. Caoilte, thanks very much for joining me there. We're both complaining, a real Irish thing to do. We're both complaining about the heat here. It's roasting here in Saskatoon. It's roasting back home as well. And things are about to get even more hotter based off some of the opinions and drama that was unfolded on the UFC card last night as well.
You're telling me that. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I may not have the in-depth grappling knowledge that Harry can provide, but I'll do my very best to keep up with you guys and how you usually do things. But
Yeah.
I'm dying with this heat, man. Like I've been sunburned, I'm sweating. I actually have like a tea towel next to me over here so I can wipe my head. It's actually ridiculous. I've never experienced heat like this in Ireland.
It's crazy. Why is it back there now where you are? 28
At
night?
the, at the moment, no, it's 23.
23.
But
Yeah,
it's
it's
dead
warm
heat.
for Ireland. That's warm for Ireland.
That's it.
29 over here right now at the minute. But look, we won't complain too much. We'll get in. There was a big fight gone down in the flyweight division, the first non-UFC title fight in the flyweight division that headlined the card. That was Kai France, Amir Albazi. The card overall, Caoilte, in recent weeks, or maybe last week, it was Mick Mariner came out and was kind of going at bloody elbow, and a couple of the guys kind of alluded to it on the big podcast this week as well. And for me, this was a very important card for the UFC where they would have wanted it to deliver. I felt that the card did deliver overall. I actually enjoyed watching it last night, and that was after watching KSW as well. So I was after consuming a lot of MMA, and I still enjoyed this card. That tells me that it was a good card overall. I know that you watched it back today. I know the viewing experience when we do watch these fights back are a little bit better because we can kind of fast forward through and just watch the fights on its own. But overall, without maybe getting into too much detail of each one of the fights, how was your viewing experience of this card?
It's the first time I've watched one back the next day in so long, and obviously the luxury of skipping through all the middle things that you might not want to be watching and all the ads. So and yeah, I was delighted. I really enjoyed the card. Even the ones that went to a decision, there was always something going on. Yeah, it definitely delivered. I was fairly impressed with some of the performance in the card. There's some great finishes. Uh, some very close fights, some very close decisions. But I'm sure we'll get into that as we go ahead. But I'm delighted with my viewing experience anyway today. I was very happy with watching it all back.
Yeah, no, it's always nice to watch it. I went back, watched a couple of fights today, and one of the fights I did look back upon was the main event with Kai France and Amir Albazi. Hotly contested, as I said. Lots and lots of opinions online after this one. What we'll do, Quilcher, we'll get into the fight first. We'll break down the nuts and the bolts. We'll discuss what we thought of the fight, and we'll go round by round basis. So obviously there was a lot of controversy over how this fight was scored online, lots of different opinions. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit about that after this. But round one, super close round for me, Quilcha. Amir Albazi came out, landed a nice left hook. Kai France tried to respond with a right hand, didn't land, and that's going to be a big theme of this fight too. Cara France, while his output was very impressive in this fight, not all of those shots landed. Albazi shot for a takedown straight away in round one, trying to implement that game plan he had coming in. Obviously, he wanted to try and put Kai France on his back. Big low kick landed from Cara France. Did some damage, but I don't think it did that much damage, in my opinion. Albazi landed a big shot after that and another jab that followed as well. And then towards the end of the round, I think Albazi kind of allowed Cara France to get off a straight right hand when he was kind of backing away with his hands behind his back, which was kind of a silly move. When you look back at round one, I just kind of gave you the lowdown. How did you kind of see that round? Maybe from game plan perspectives first, maybe, and then we can talk about scoring a little bit after that.
It was evident from the very beginning that Albazi was wanting to get to the ground. He disguised that right hand. He disguised that takedown really well with the right hand beforehand, and you could tell that this was going to be the tail of the fight, and it's going to be this Albazi trying to get to the mat, and Caoilte France is going to stand it outside, pick his shots really well, use that jab, low kick, and stay away. And that's the first round kind of gave us, really. Overall, I must admit, this was the one that's probably the round that threw up the most kind of controversy for me. Anyway, it's actually thought was the closest one, the more difficult one to score, and probably the one that made the difference in the scorecards, in my opinion. Anyway, but it was tight, and the eye test. If I wasn't scoring it from actively scoring the round, I would have been thinking, geez, you know what? I think Albazi might have nicked that one. Just purely, he looked more aggressive, and he was putting the pressure on, but he wasn't landing all that much. And when I was kind of thinking about it more and being a bit more judgmental of the round, I noticed, like, okay, Caoilte France is actually landing the strikes here. He's the one, he's popping that jab out, double jab at times, and he was landing more impactful strikes. And I must admit, I thought he took that round.
Yeah, well, I kind of scored around for Amir Albazi, to be honest. Okay. Yeah, and I think it just kind of proves how close of a round it was. I'm not going to sit here and argue you scoring the round for Caoilte France. I think Sean scored it for him as well. I was just texting him before this as well, just to see it. He said it was an extremely close round, and it was. Like, there was a lot of non-action there. It has to be said, when we're looking at these fights, we're looking back, we have the chance to watch them back again. We have the chance to kind of go in there and kind of pick them apart with a fine-tooth comb. So I can't imagine how hard it is to kind of come. Like, last night, I watched the fight too, and the only thing I could tell you was I didn't watch it with a judging eye. And, I would value more people's opinions on judging than I would my own as well, that being said. But what I looked at, what I seen was an extremely, extremely close round one. And I think that Albazi, his work a little bit earlier on, kind of did it for me. His response after that big calf kick, where he did land a nice right hand, I believe, and then a jab after the fact as well. The big straight right hand at the end of the round, like, I saying that's silly because you're Amir Albazi there, Caoilte, right? You're after fighting a very close first round, and you want to finish that round with your hands behind your back, goading on Caoilte France to hit you in the face. And Caoilte France completely obliged to that as well, really, and connected right well. And, that could be the winning and losing of a round to him. That's fresh in the judgment mind. Not that the judges are going to be looking at it, but, you're looking for an excuse to score that round to somebody. And I think Amir Albazi tried to give Cara France an excuse to do that. But I think looking back at that, Albazi will be thinking he can't really be doing that in close fights going forward, can he?
No, I think he let the ego get the better of him, and the two of them squaring up, no one's backing down, and thinking that, oh yeah, you can do, if you're going to put your hands behind your back, I'll do it too. But it's when you're standing in front of someone so high level, if you're baiting them like that, they're going to take that opportunity, and on another day you could get someone who lands a massive right hand that knocks you out. It's not the best fight IQ, and definitely something I don't think you can really do going forward.
Yeah, so the first round, we saw Albazi, kind of play a tit for tat. There was a lot of stages of the first round that nothing really happened, and it's kind of a trend for the fight. The takedown attempt was unsuccessful. I don't really believe there was too much that you could score against that. You're basically scoring this off one or two shots, really, and that's about the size of it. Let's go on. In round two, as my mic just disconnects, excuse me, Matt. We'll be back in round two. Kai Kara-France landed a big calf kick to open up the round again. Albazi followed up with a jab to the body. Kai Kara-France was throwing some good combinations, but the combinations weren't landing that much as well. There was a few instances in this fight, and especially at the start of the round 2, where he was moving forward. He was throwing some great combinations, but he looked like he was struggling a little bit with his distance management and his range. Did you kind of see that in round 2 as well?
I did, yeah. He touched him with the jab a few times, but there was not much else throughout the round. He was struggling to kind of gauge where Albazi was and get his momentum going. And I feel like Albazi was really, he was, as much as he wasn't letting his hands go as much as he probably could have. He was, he's trying to get that takedown. He was the more aggressive too, and he did get a few strikes in as well. But I would have given that one to Albazi personally, just purely because I don't think Kai was really in the groove at that point, and he didn't seem comfortable in that round and was unable to kind of implement that game plan, which seemed to be the stand the outside, pick your shots really well, but and he just couldn't get that off.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you in the scoring of that round as well. I had Amir Albazi winning that round as well. There was a nice kick. The calf kicks obviously were landing from Kai Kara-France, but it was a kick to the body and a left hook that Amir Albazi landed. And then he followed up towards the end of the round with some more nice left hooks. And it was a nice uppercut and a straight that kind of really caught my attention at the end of the round. Kara-France, like we were talking about, did follow up with a combination, but weren't that impactful. And I mean, when you're scoring, we're told to kind of look at the impact. And, while Kai Kara-France is throwing a lot of shots, there was none too impactful. Not that there was too many impactful for Albazi, but definitely for me, it was the left hooks and the straights from Albazi in that second round that had me scoring at 10-9 to Amir Albazi. Round 3 coming up, we had Amir Albazi closing the distance, looking to try and take the back, getting into clinch position. Almost got full on back control. Kai Kara-France scrambled well, secured a body lock takedown after that transition, and then landed some damage as well. So that was the first sign that we had seen with Albazi getting the fight down and being successful there, Caoilte. And you had kind of cited that in round 1. He tried, didn't so much to do so really in round 2, and then went back to it again in round 3. What kind of did that tell you about? Well, to me, that kind of tells me, Albazi went for it. Okay, he's not quite there yet. Maybe he wanted to kind of drain on or push the pace on Kai Kara-France a little bit and then go back to it again in round 3, where he was successful. But Kai Kara-France did well in those exchanges to keep the fight on the feet as well. Obviously, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but you mentioned that was looking like what was the base of the game plan for Amir Albazi in this fight, was looking to try and mix up and create some exchanges on the feet to open up those takedowns, really.
Very much so. And I think although I didn't find him as like he could have been a bit more active when he was in range and on the feet, but when he got things to the ground, when he got a hold of Kai Kara-France, as well as Kai Kara-France did to defend the takedowns in this round, that first where he took the first takedown, which didn't count in the end, but he took the back, swept the leg, but that scramble was fantastic by Kai Kara-France to get back up, and incredible. When he finally secured that takedown, it's like he was getting a feel for it throughout. He was waiting to pinpoint those little details so he can finally get that takedown and get that position which he wanted to. And then and at that point he landed some strikes. He got the rear naked choke. Looked at one point, it looked tight as well, but the angle was just that little bit off so that he couldn't get that finish. But and I think just with those little details, I thought that he took that round. Kai rallied back really well near the end, but it just wasn't enough for him to take the round for me personally.
Yeah, for me too, just to follow on the rest of the round, for me, it was that rear naked choke, the damage that was landed on top as well from Amir Albazi. I think Kai Kara-France did very, very well to kind of keep calm when that rear naked choke was on, and also did create some lovely scrambles there to get himself out of trouble, and ended up on the feet towards the end of the round. And he reversed Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi, I thought, made the mistake of holding on to those hooks to try and maintain that back position when Kai Kara-France got back up to his feet. Kai Kara France kind of switched them up, reversed them, was in Amir Albazi's guard, looked to get off a couple of shots towards the end of the round, but there was a flurry that landed when Kai Kara France was on top there. And I went back and looked at it 3 or 4 times, and he may have thrown, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 punches, and maybe 1 or 2 maybe landed and kind of grazed off Albazi. Now, and that's what we have to kind of highlight there too. If a judge doesn't have a perfect view of that, he doesn't really, or she doesn't really know how many of those shots landed. So that's how difficult it is for judges in that position. Like, we have the luxury of watching it back and slowing it down and studying it real hard. But so you had it for Amir Albazi going in to round 4. So you would have had it 29-28 at that stage. I would have had it 30-27 Amir Albazi. So I had it that Kai Kara France needed a finish going into round 4 and round 5. And I think Kai Kara France kind of figured that out too, Caoilte, because he came out a lot more aggressive in round 4, didn't he?
He did. He kind of like found, it's almost like he found the rhythm and he found that kind of flow inside there. And it wasn't all just aggression. It was calculated as well. The way he was picking those strikes, it's like he got the read of Albazi at that point, and he was able to implement that game plan really well. And he just looked unstoppable at that point. I was taken away by how different he looked in those final 2 rounds, which we'll go into now, compared to the first 3. I was thinking, okay, this might be, we could be looking at a finish here. And he was pushing for it too, but as we know, it went to the decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was the calf kicks that he was really relying on again in round 4. But what we did see is a further output of strikes as well. And to me, I mean, maybe his confidence grew, maybe, Caoilte. I don't know what you think, but like, his confidence may have grew in having the success in the scrambles, in the kind of grappling exchanges, and in the clinch as well. Whereas that we've seen time and time again, looking at, and I think Amir Albazi, obviously on the other end of the stick, maybe would have been fighting on the feet a little bit more than he would have liked to in this fight as well. But I thought that he actually showcased some good striking ability as well, and really impressed me there, kind of hanging and, getting out of the way of shots and getting off his own shots too, and what was a really close fight. Another takedown attempt from Amir Albazi was stuffed as well, which would have given Kai Kara France another good bit of confidence in round 4 as well. And after that, after he scrambled and got away from that, landed a nice exchange with a right hand and another straight shot after the breakaway as well. Towards the end of the round, Amir Albazi landed a nice body kick, was taken down, but he scrambled back up, and it was another close 4th round, but one I was fairly confident in giving to Kai Kara France. And you kind of scored that one to Kai Kara France as well. On to round 5. And it was the same old kind of situation that we've seen in round 4. It was Kai Kara France, Caoilte, coming out and being super aggressive again.
Very, very much so. And he was throwing that flying knee into a combination at one point. He was taking control of that. And Albazi wasn't really, his output wasn't what I expected. I'm not sure if he was getting a little bit tired at that point. But the speed of Kai Kara France, for me, was really the difference maker in him being able to take control of that round and take that round. Like, the volume was increasing. The jab was just money every single time, and he's popping out. It wasn't always landing, but it helped him control that range. The double jab helped him that as well, and he was able to just pick those shots really nicely and just take control of those striking exchanges, and that's what he really did. Naturally, at the end of the round, heated up for those last 20 seconds, and it was a bit of a firefight at that point, which I guess at the end of every 5-round fight they kind of tend to do. But look, overall, if I look back in the entire fight after this round, it was a bit of a chess match, really. And I guess the scorecards really reflect how much of a chess match that was, in the 2 different type of styles of a striker versus grappler meeting inside the cage.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It was a really, really intriguing fight. We both scored round 5 for Kai Kara France. And I guess you said it was round 1. I think that we both seen a difference of an opinion, and where you would have had scored a fight Kai Kara France 48-47, and my scorecards would be 48-47 to Amir Albazi, and what was a really close, intriguing fight. And I think, a thing that's really frustrating me right now, Caoilte, is that all of that seems to be left in the rear view mirror now, because everybody wants to fucking share their opinion on who won or who got robbed. Like, by no ways or means was this a robbery. This was a super close fight between two high-level individuals with two great game plans to counteract different kind of styles that they both possessed. I didn't think that Kai Kara-France fought to the best of his abilities for the majority of the fight. I think he found his groove a little bit in rounds 4, rounds 5. But like you said, whether that came from more confidence from defending the takedowns, whether he felt, he was growing and building stronger into the fight, I felt that he has performed better. I thought even though he was finished by Brandon Moreno, I thought the spells that he had in the Brandon Moreno fight were more successful than what he had against Amir Albazi. Now, maybe that was because he didn't throw too much kicks to the body, etc., because maybe he was worried about the takedown a little bit as well. But I thought, even though he was competitive, and there was a lot of controversy there, I thought Kai Kara-France didn't fight that well. He didn't fight bad, but I don't think he fought to the full nature. Do you agree or do you disagree? What do you think about that?
Maybe not to the full capabilities of his potential, but I believe this is the first time for both guys hitting the 4th round, isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong there, because I think it is. But given the 5 rounds the first time, I thought he managed it quite well. Maybe there is moments, especially in the first round in particular, where it was the toss-up round, which he probably could have done a little bit more in, but may have been tentative because he was doing those extra 10 minutes compared to usual. But the way he was defending the takedowns and managing that wrestling that Albazi is very much known for, and was trying to implement it on every occasion, let's be real. I thought he did really well in that case. The striking wasn't as crisp as usual, but as soon as round 4, round 5 started heating up, or he started getting his groove, as you were saying there, he looked really good. So there was glimmers where he may not have been at his full potential, but overall, I was actually quite impressed despite losing.
Yeah, it was a good performance. Yeah, I don't want to take too much away from it at all. Right? But, something I'd like to talk about is the madness that we're seeing after each one of these fights now, where it seems that we're kind of in a constant conveyor belt of complaints over the judging here. And I know I'm getting a bit tired of it, because what we're not talking about is how good a fight this was. A close fight means a good fight, and the term robbery is just being thrown around far too much lately these days. What's kind of your general consensus on what we've been seeing? Because it seems like every single UFC card now, this is the same conversation going over and over again, and it kind of takes away from the performances and the actual fights themselves. I'm actually quite tired of it now at this stage.
It's a really weird trend recently that's come about, where people have been calling for the judges to be accountable and come out and explain their scorecards, and this anger at judges constantly, when a lot of people who are calling for it don't understand the criteria and how to score these, and have never really, a lot of people have, we've never been in a position, I personally haven't, I assume you haven't either, been in the position where you're scoring one of these fights and viewing it from that perspective. It's, from what I can imagine, it would be extremely difficult. Like, we obviously have the luxury of looking at from a television, when they're looking at cage side, trying to make these decisions in the moment, that's a very difficult skill in itself. And it's annoying, the fact that people are so quick to jump on people's backs. Sometimes it might be justified in some terrible scorecards that we've seen, but in stuff like this, it just takes away from some amazing fights. And I really, as I said earlier, it's like a chess match, and it's like it takes away from this chess match and this clash of styles that we get to see. And it's a shame, really. Like, I saw Israel Adesanya was putting up that the judges should be held accountable.
Absolutely nonsense. Like, are we really going to take Israel Adesanya's opinion on that he thought his teammate won? Of course he's going to think it. You're going to have that level of bias there. And it's like, oh man, it's so frustrating, because, the story of that fight is, all right, it was a close fight, but Amir Albazi got the nod, and he proved he moved to 17-1 and proved that, he does belong in the top of the flyweight division. And that's a great story in its own right. He could be the first Iraqi champion inside the UFC. He's got a damn good chance. Call for his shot after the fight as well, for the winner of Pantoja and Brandon Moreno, which is happening in a couple of months' time. And he's on a fantastic run now. his last fight too, it was Ryan Curtis. He beat Ryan Curtis at Brave 29 before he moved over to the UFC, and has picked up wins now over Malcolm Gordon, Zagla Semughelov, Francisco Figueiredo, Alexandra Costa, and now Kai Kara France. So, undefeated inside the UFC, only one defeat in his professional career. And the big question here, Caoilte, before the fight was that, is this too big of a step up? Because the competition he had faced was tough, but not at the same kind of level as what Kai Kara France. But win or lose, no matter what you think of the result, like Amir Albazi proved last night that he does belong in the elite level status of the 125-pound division.
Completely agree with you. Like the flyweight division's been crying out for numerous contenders for so long, especially after we've seen Figueiredo and Moreno go back and forth, God knows how many times. So we've been calling out for kind of these new contenders to emerge, and Kai Kara France is still up there as one, but Amir Albazi's just launched himself into that contendership now, and it just makes that division a lot more interesting. There's a lot better, not better, but yeah, there's a better storylines nowadays with all these different people who can be calling for a shot. And it makes it more competitive, and it raises the level of the entire division when you see these guys getting better and better with every fight and kind of keeping the champion on their heels.
100%. The 125-pound division is hot right now. The talent in there is ridiculous. Title shot next for Amir Albazi. He called for it. Would you give it to him?
No.
Ooh. What would you like to see?
Honestly, I look at the rankings there real quick. After watching the fight, I don't think a title fight would be. It may be justified. I just don't think he'd be ready. I think one more fight before the title shot. Let me have a quick look now. I'm just getting up. Next, try to think. Someone like a Brandon Royval, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he was calling for the title shot again last night as well. So if he doesn't get it, maybe you could do Albazi versus Royval as the next challenger, all depending on what happens between Pantoja and Brandon Moreno, of course. Entertainment in the main event, Caoilte. Also entertainment of a different kind, per se, in the co-main event between Alex Caceres and Daniel Pineda, who had gone in there after finishing off 28 of his 28 wins. Came in there with 100% finish rate in these fights, but fell victim to a unanimous decision of Alex Caceres. And, Alex Caceres was fighting for his top 15 position in the featherweight division, and he did well. I thought Pineda started off well, but Caceres came kind of back into the fight relatively well and showed a level of toughness too when his back was against the wall that, he's shown more and more and more over. And I think that's his most recent run and his success and his move up to the top 15 in the division has came where, he's 35 years of age now, I think, and he's getting more experience, but he kind of picked off a tough challenger last night in Daniel Pineda, who was a really good fighter that kind of was going a little bit under the radar.
Very tricky grappler that was throwing up all sorts of submissions. He was chaining submissions as well. I remember there was a point in the first round. I think it was he was attacking the triangle. He attacked the leg and then he attacked the arm. And I was thinking, my God, it's a very risky move because he could, that could go very much against you soon after. But
big time. To
be chaining those submissions and to be constantly hunting, I was like, oh my God, if one of these pulls off, it would be sensational. And I really enjoy Pineda's grappling. The gas tank needs a lot of work, and Caceres, the patience and the ability to grow into that fight and then just take over, especially in the final round, was impressive. It was almost like a bit of a grappler and striker match again, realistically. But Caceres dealt with the grappling exchanges quite well, I must admit.
Yeah, and I think Caceres has some very underrated grappling. Obviously, we've seen some flashy submissions and stuff like that as well. But his work on the feet in recent fights has been very, very impressive to me as well. It was the shots to the body here that was causing Daniel Pineda. Like, I was thinking at the end of the fight, how is this man still standing? The heart and the grit and determination to take that amount of damage throughout rounds 2 and rounds 3 was crazy. You could see him wincing. You could see him kind of half wanting to bend over and fold, but he was refusing to give up, and he just fought till the final bell. The judges did score it for Alex Caceres. I think this was a relatively easy fight to score. Did you agree with the judges and how they scored? I think Ron McCarthy had a 29-28. So did Juanchero Camacho and Derek Cleary as well, all 29-28, with rounds 1 and rounds 3 going to Alex Caceres and round 2 going to Pineda. Would you agree with the scorecards there?
That's exactly what I have down here. I thought Pineda actually, I thought he was good in the first round, but not enough to take the round. But yeah, no, I had the same first round Caceres, second Pineda, and third Caceres. I've one for you here though, is that final round of round 3, up until the point where Pineda dropped Caceres out of nowhere. I actually thought there was a bit of an argument for a 10-8 until that point. I felt like that kind of pulled it back for Pineda slightly, but
yeah.
Mark Smith was keeping such a close eye on Pineda due to the body language and like some of those strikes, the Winston, he just didn't look right. And I was thinking that it could have, if it kept going the way it wasn't and Pineda didn't land that strike, we were en route to a 10-8, but maybe I was reaching a bit with that.
No, I could see that for sure, because there was a lot of damage there. Obviously, I said Ron McCarthy scored a 29-28. He actually scored all 3 rounds for Alex Caceres. I'm looking at a different card. Never mind. But yeah, you're right. Sean mentioned one thing I want to pick your brain about it, and I kind of agree with him. It's mad seeing a guy like Alex Caceres fighting in top 15 of the UFC when we have Paul Hughes waiting in the wings. It's an absolute it's a shame that he's not signed up yet. Like, would you think that Paul Hughes would go in there and beat either one of those 2 guys that you've seen last night based off their performances?
I think he'd beat Pineda for sure, yeah, especially if he's able to deal with the grappling exchanges, but which we've seen Paul do on numerous occasions before. But I think you're doing Alex Caceres a little bit dirty there. I rate Paul very highly, and I think him and Alex Caceres would be an absolute scrap. I think it'd be so high level. But on the current form of Alex Caceres, I think it would be a very difficult fight, and although very good. If you go back a few years to when Caceres he had that lull period where he just wasn't performing, and he's pulled it back ever since. So I can see the argument, and it's a crime that Paul isn't in the UFC win. But for lads like Pineda, for sure. Caceres, though, I feel like he's proved that he's earned his place in that top 15 personally.
Yeah, he certainly has. And I mean, no disrespect to Alex Caceres, but I mean, yeah, I think it was a fair statement. I would kind of agree with it too. But, I'm not necessarily saying Hughes goes in and blows them out with the water, but like, I think he's very, very capable of picking up wins against those kind of guys. For Caceres now, he's cemented his status in the top 15. Would you be looking at probably giving him a top 10 opponent next, or how would you like to see him matched up?
Lad, he called out. I love how he just didn't know who to call out. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I forgot he called out. He called out Alex Volkanovski. Definitely reaching for the stars there for sure.
It doesn't seem like it's his kind of like in his personality to be calling out fighters. It's not something he'd like to do, and he just went shoot for the stars, I guess.
That's it. Shoot for the stars. You never know where you might land.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, for Caceres, yeah, you just stick him in there. I don't know, like, if any kind of top 10 opponent here, I'm not really. I don't think Caceres, he's going to get found out eventually. I think he's went on a good run lately, but I couldn't see him picking up too many more wins inside the top 15 or top 10 of the division, with all due respect to him. But that's just how I see it. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to be getting the Alex Volkanovski fight next, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Talk to me about Tim Elliott and Victor Altamirano fighting the flyweight division. Obviously, look at a lot of personal things going on in Tim Elliott's kind of life heading into this fight. That was the focus of attention there. We won't necessarily concentrate on that, but it was a lot of baggage coming in here. But he came in there and fought a very smart fight and picked up a nice win over Victor Altamirano, didn't he?
Tim Elliott doing Tim Elliott things. He's such a grinder. He'd take you down, he'll keep you there, he'll post up, land his strikes, and he'll just make the fight so dirty. The one thing I noticed, every single time he got to the ground, he had the hands wrapped around the neck of his opponent, and he was drilling his head into him and just making it so uncomfortable. I'd hate to be on the receiving end of it. He seems like a horrible fight, especially if you're not a very credentialed wrestler, which Altamirano did very well, but he just couldn't deal with that pressure. Elliott was just, I thought he was just dominated that fight, to be honest. There was glimmers, but I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, he fought very, very smartly, I thought. I know at this late stage of his career, Caoilte, like it's and we've seen him, take some bad knockouts in past fights as well. I think Tim knows himself that he doesn't have the ability to take a shot like he used to before. And I thought, there was stages here where he did connect and he looked like in a little bit of trouble, but not too much trouble. But he didn't allow Altamirano to kind of get off his shots that well, because he timed his takedowns very well and was really focusing on that grappling. And nobody scrambles better than Tim Elliott in those positions, really. It was just great to look at. And, came out and said after the fight too, said he had a lot of issues in camp, had a lot of issues with the weight cut, and that he couldn't fight to his full potential because he felt he needed to protect his body throughout the fight, because he had some trouble with stomach issues ahead of the fight and with the weigh-in and everything. So I think that makes the win even more impressive, doesn't it?
Yeah, to overcome all those issues, like the personal ones that are made online, to overcome them in the build up to this, even make them public as well, and then the issues, the weight cut, it's tough. It's fair play to him for overcoming that, and to put on the performance that he did. It makes it even more impressive. I think it adds another feather to his cap, and it's like a second win almost. You've overcome all those as one win, and then you actually get the win and the paycheck at the end as a second for him personally. So fair, yeah. I was really impressed. To be actually on the Altamirano, I thought he was good. Obviously, landed that head kick at one point, and then I feel like at the end of the round, he almost probably cost himself a little bit. When he
yeah.
He tried to take it to the ground himself, and I was sitting there. I was like, why do you try to take Tim Elliott to the ground in the final minute of a fight? It was bizarre to me. Like, he was doing so much better on the feet. It didn't make sense. But on to the next one for him, I guess. You live and learn.
Yeah, it is. It'll be a disappointing loss for Altamirano, but a good win for Tim Elliott. And I mean, when I hear fighters talking about how difficult the weight cut is and having issues coming into the fight, I'm like, does he really need to be doing that to himself? Kind of going down the line at this late stage of his career. If I had a gun to my head, if I was asked what weight he would be fighting at next, it's probably going to be at 125. He's probably going to want to do that again. But he said that he struggled with the weight cut. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with that going forward. A fight I'd like to see, obviously, Matt Schnell has fallen off next week's UFC 289 card. I'd like to see Tim Elliott there. Look at, he's ranked 11th now. He'd probably move up or maybe maintain his position. Schnell fell out of that David Dvorak fight. Maybe we do Matt Schnell versus Tim Elliott. It'll give him a chance to kind of break into the top 10. They fought before on The Ultimate Fighter in the house, I believe, where Tim Elliott picked up the win over Matt Schnell. So that'd be a nice kind of a throwback fight if that were to happen in the flyweight division. I'd like to see that as well. Moving on, we had Brazil versus Brazil crashing. Karine Silva versus Caitlin Souza. And I mean, Karine Silva didn't waste any time here. Caoilte, 1 minute and 45 seconds into round one, she locks in a straight knee bar and absolutely destroys the knee out of Caitlin Souza. It was a tough watch, wasn't it?
It was awful. I watched it back a few times, and coming from a knee injury personally, at one point I was looking at it and I was grimacing. It looked rank, and they replayed it.
They kept showing it. I was like, good God. I was just after eating my dinner. I was like, come on here. Give us a break.
I feel like the commentary thought it was like, they thought it was a toe hold or a heel hook, and then they looked at it back and then they see the knee go off to the side in this really strange. It was very odd.
Really weird position, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a knee bar that was off to the side almost, and yeah, it did serious damage anyway. I couldn't figure it out. It was actually this fight I was thinking, geez, like, fair wish Harry was here, because my grappling experience isn't that good to explain that one. It's crazy.
Yeah, really, really weird angle there, where it was like, and even the way the knee kind of shot out, it was kind of like it looked, or it appeared to be from a result of what you would see from a heel hook, perhaps, but it went down as a knee bar. You could even hear in the audio of it, you could hear a little bit of a snap before it went as well. It was just absolutely terrible. And we wish all the best to Caitlin Souza and in her recovery. But I mean, the story here is Karine Silva coming in here, moving to 16-4 now, and proving that she is another major player in the flyweight division. In the women's flyweight division, Caoilte right now is hot as hell. There's serious talent, like the men's flyweight division too. But we have Corinne Silva going in there now, and that was her 7th win in a row. Undefeated so far in the UFC, coming off the Contender Series at 2-0 now, and she needs a big jump up in competition next. Having picked up a Darce win in her first UFC fight over Poliana Botiello, and then picking up that win last night over Caitlin Souza. Do you go ranked next? Do you go maybe another challenger outside the top 15? How would you like to see the progression of Caitlin Souza's career? 29, she's got a little bit of time. We're not in any mad rush. I mean, if I was to throw a name out there, if there was somebody outside of the top 15, I'd probably look at Natalia Silva. I believe she's at 125 as well, who just picked up a good win last weekend. You could do the old Silva and Silva action, or maybe you could give her someone in the from 10 to 15 in the top 15. How would you like to see her matched up next?
I think a tough test against someone like Casey O'Neill would be good next. Casey O'Neill's coming off a loss and is probably not going to get to fight upwards. So they'd be looking at someone, a new contender, to try and take her place, and she's going to be fighting for her place. And I think Silva would be a good matchup for that. Test that grappling of Casey O'Neill, and I think it'd be a real tough test between two prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, Casey O'Neill currently ranked number 12 in the rankings. It'd be a good solid test as well coming in here. See Andrew Lee, Tracy Cortez, lots of options in the 125-pound division now for Corinne Silva. It'll be definitely interesting to see what happens with her. Moving on, Alessio Zaleski dos Santos came back from a layoff for having, I think it was a USADA ban for tainted supplement, they said on the boot. Got hurt early in this fight by Abubakar Nurmagomedov, and it kind of set the tone early in this fight for Zaleski to kind of clinch. Nurmagomedov hurt him early and then chose to clinch instead of kind of maybe standing off and landing some more strikes. I thought that was a huge mistake at the start of this fight for Abubakar Nurmagomedov.
Completely. And it seemed as though it's something that he wants to do throughout the fight. That kind of like 50-50 clinch position is something that Nurmagomedov kept going to. And it wasn't exactly working out for him. If he kept putting the pressure on and like you were saying, just like don't clinch, just keep striking and keep adding to that damage that you've already done. I thought it would have done him a lot more benefit in the long run of that fight than it would have than just clinching, because it was disappointing from that perspective. I thought dos Santos was very good. I thought his game plan was implemented quite well throughout that fight.
You see fighters making some decisions. One that always sticks out to me is that you always see a really tired fighter looking for a spinning attack. And sometimes we'll see fighters who will choose to follow somebody down when they knock them down into someone's guard rather than let them stand up. Abubakar, he tried to clinch here and land some more damage. And like I said, he should have probably looked to kind of land more on the feet. Like, you cannot say anything only than it's bad fight IQ at the very start of the fight. Almost hurt him in the first exchange. But then, Zaleski dos Santos, he came back well. He started to recover. Nurmagomedov gave him the chance to recover. And then in rounds 2 and rounds 3, he got off some nice shots of his own. And, it was a really good performance coming back off after a layoff from Zaleski dos Santos as well. Were you impressed overall with his performance?
The way he handled the grappling and the takedown defense, I was really impressive, because it felt like Nurmagomedov was just constantly trying to get up against the cage and work from that kind of clinch position or the underhook position and work his way down and get the hands locked and get the takedown. That kind of typical combat sambo style of wrestling. And dos Santos did really well to keep that away. I was impressed by that. And then in the final round, he opened up early on. He had that flying knee and those low kicks. I thought the low kick that's a really risky thing to be doing against such a high level wrestler in someone like Nurmagomedov, because you're opening yourself up to just being the leg getting caught and taken down. And I thought I thought it was risky, but he was so good and timed him so perfectly that that stood out to me as something that was really impressive from Dos Santos. A great comeback fight.
Yeah, and he figured at that stage too that he had the speed advantage as well. And he was also able to counteract the clinch work of Nurmagomedov very well with knees on the inside and some elbows as well, just kind of punishing. And look at you said that you don't have that much experience with BJJ, but you have plenty of experience with Muay Thai. And getting off those shots in there are very, very important in the clinch. And we're seeing a lot more of it, that good clinch work as well, where we're seeing the integration of a lot more I'm seeing a lot more knees and elbows off the break from fighters too, which is it's a testament to a lot of work on the pads or whatnot in the clinch as well for Muay Thai techniques, isn't it, Caoilte?
Thai Jitsu, it's coming. I'm telling you, mix up get these grapplers in Muay Thai. Thai Jitsu's coming, and that's gonna be it.
I love it. I've never heard that before, but Alessio Zaleski dos Santos picked up a win, 29-28 on all three. No, it was a split. It was a split decision, actually. Excuse me. One judge did score it for Aberbacker, rounds 1 and rounds 2. Derek Cleary, Ron McCarthy, Brian Miner scored it 29-28 to Zaleski dos Santos, who picked up a split decision as well. Moving on to Daniel Santos versus Johnny Munoz. This was a strange one, Caoilte. The fight opened up with a pretty bad shot to the nuts for Johnny Munoz. Not the way you want to be starting a fight, really, is it?
No, not at all. I think it was kind of nut shots were the story of this entire fight. Munoz was pissing blood afterwards. It was such a shame. Yeah, it's the worst way to start a fight possible. Like, if you can't take a nut shot straight away, your entire rhythm, momentum to try and come back, it's awful. I felt really bad for him, and it was a rough one too. That wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very rough. Not the way you want to start, and it's hard to come back for. But you know what, Johnny Munoz, he did, and he made it somewhat of a competitive fight. Fought a little bit frustratingly for me too. The biggest thing and the biggest takeaway that I have from this fight is that Munoz accepted back bottom position a little bit too much here. I truly feel that there's no way any fighter should be using a technique when you're on your back where you're locking up with a body triangle. I mean, it's just a defensive tactic to try and stall, and it very rarely happens because all a fighter has to do on top is stay landing those rabbit punches to the body and maybe switch it up to the head as well. What he did in the first exchange when they did hit, when he's back and when Santos did take him down, was he started attacking straight away with arm bars and with triangles and everything like that, but kind of drifted away from that kind of game plan as well. And I think it was actually Dean Thomas who said it, and I was thinking it as well, is that in those positions, you need to be either attacking for submissions or trying to get up. It's you can't just sit there and take shots for it. And Johnny Munoz, he kind of did that in rounds 2 and rounds 3, and that was what basically cost him the fight. Santos was excellent in getting the takedowns. He looked stronger. He looked more aggressive. But, he was more than willing to stay going back to that because Munoz was allowing him to get off damage on top as well. And I mean, yeah, every time I seen him locking up that body triangle from bottom, I was like, come on, what are we doing here?
Like, it's one of those fights that like fans would be just like, what the hell are you doing? Do you know how Ryan Hall gets a lot of shit for the way he fights at times, and it was kind of a similar one for that for me. It was very frustrating because he probably could have done so much more and probably been so much more effective in the fight if he didn't just pull guard. And I guess it could have been the game plan. He almost that armbar. He almost had that armbar. I think it was in the first round, but overall, a bit of a frustrating watch. I think Santos kind of not walked away with it, at that point, taken away in the final round. But overall, good performance from Santos.
Take away that point deduction, and he won all 3 rounds. Obviously, that was scored a draw in round 3 on most of the judges' scorecards, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was 29-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards, and correct as well. Another nut shot in round 3. But yeah, I thought that he was under pressure with that nut shot for the rest of the round. But ultimately, it was Santos who was the better fighter overall, who landed the better shots on the feet. landed the more damage in the grappling exchanges, and did really, really well there as well. It was the explosiveness and the aggression of Santos that won the fight for him overall, Caoilte, wasn't it?
He was much more effective in the striking, and he was just doing all the damage, and he was landing things well. Munoz wasn't setting up those takedowns well, constantly accepting position, and yeah, it was actually a perfect kind of style for Santos to look to showcase how good he is. Although he didn't get to do it to the best of abilities, I imagine. But it was good. I would like to see him against someone who maybe would put him up a bit more under pressure on the feet, maybe test him a little bit more. And I imagine that would be to come. But that was a good test for him. It was a good performance as well.
Yeah, that rounded up that started off the prelims fight. Next, we had Dontel Mays, who picked up a knockout win over Andrei Arlovsky. Not a great fight, really, to be honest. It's Arlovsky won round one, got off the better shots in the early exchanges. Dontel Mays started growing in confidence as the fight went on and landing his shots, and ultimately, clipped Andrei Arlovsky. And that was the beginning of the end. I mean, you can't take too much away from this fight. I think, if you're Dontel Mays here, you've passed the Andrei Arlovsky test. It's a credit and a testament to Arlovsky. He's been fighting for a long, long time and in the UFC, and racked up a lot of UFC experience in that time too. But I think with Dontel Mays, just had his number last night and clipped him, and followed up with ground strikes in round 2 to take home the TKO win. Any thoughts?
I actually thought that Arlovsky took the first round, and I thought he was moving really well in the first round. He's kind of evolved as a fighter, and his style has changed very much to when he was younger. And it's probably something that you'd have to do, because your chin is always going to be there, and you're going to take strikes from these massive guys. I really liked him. I thought he was great in the first round. I was thinking, oh my god, Arlovsky looks the much better, and he could have been taking it. Now Mays heard him at the end of at the end of the round. I think it was at an elbow, and that kind of let Arlovsky know like the power's there. And then second round, I think there was a leg kick, and you could see that taken away a bit from Arlovsky, and yeah, he caught him and got the better of him, really. So massive win for Mays, passing the Arlovsky test and getting the win. But yeah, it was sad to see Arlovsky lose. I thought he looked really good until he got caught.
Yeah, that's going to happen. You're in the latter stages of your career, and that was almost what he's nearly hitting up 60 fights now as well, and that's 60 fights in the heavyweight division too. So that's very, very impressive from Andrei Arlovsky. And yeah, Dontel Mays, I mean, he didn't show me too much. Like, I mean, he bet an old wily veteran, but I didn't see too much from anything like that Dontel Mays showed that proved to me he's going to be a major player in the heavyweight division. But time will tell on that. Let's move on to John Castaneda versus Mun Gafurov. And I thought that this was a really, really good fight. And I think the bantamweights overall put on a great showing across the card. There was a couple of bantamweight fights here, and this was another fantastic one, wasn't it, Caoilte?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was an absolute barn burner. And I don't know, did they get a bonus for this?
I think there was only 2 given out last night. I'll check that and I'll get back to you.
I didn't realize that in the slightest now, but yeah, it was the first round was absolute chaos. I think Castaneda, excuse me. He got that head kick knocked out, wasn't it, in the first round? And that was it was fantastic. Excuse me, the second round, then we had was it Gafurov there was a clash of heads, and
yes, there was a point taken there. I was interested to get your opinion on that.
It wasn't the first one, it was the second clash of heads which the point was deducted, wasn't it?
Oh, that's right.
So Gafurov claimed that there was a clash of heads early in the round, and as soon as that clash of heads happened, he didn't get his break as which he would have expected. He came out swinging. He was wild, and it's something that could have really put the strain in the gas tank. A lovely calf kick as well. I think that kind of dropped Castaneda down. But then the one that you were mentioning there, the head clash, where he actually moves in a straight line with the head. I think the point deduction was very much valid in that situation. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I was I was happy. I was happy with the point deduction, just the way he led his head in there. It was very, very dangerous, and you're risking there with contact, a bad cut opening up, which can have a huge, huge effect on the fight. Now, there wasn't a cut open up, I don't believe, but still, you have to be. That was egregious, I think, and I think it was justified that the point got taken. But it was a great performance from Gafurov. I think Castaneda is a very, very good bantamweight. Like, good footwork. Was kind of using Gafarov's aggression against him a lot by using that footwork. I was interested in the first round to see if Gafurov was going to be able to maintain the level of aggressiveness, because he was throwing heavy, heavy shots in round one. And I think we started to see signs of him slowing down in round three. He looked heavy on the feet. He didn't seem to have as much pop in his punches, and Castaneda kind of slowly but surely came into the fight as well. Round two, they both traded off heavy, but it was the headbutt and the point that got taken. It was kind of the difference in round two. 29-27 to Castaneda on all three judges' scorecards. Would you agree with that? I think I would.
Very much so. Yeah, I thought he was. He fought tactically and he fought with technique as opposed to aggression, which Gafarov was fighting with, and it's probably something that he'll need to adjust going forward if he wants to start winning these fights. Because at this level, you can't be just fighting on pure aggression against guys at this with such high level striking, grappling, and all the different aspects of the game.
100%, yeah, well said. So he represented Tajikistan MMA, and it was a mixed bag because he took a loss there. Gafurov did, but his stablemate, or his countryman, Mohamed Naimov, came in on 2 days' notice and probably put on the performance of the night against Jamie Malarkey. Up a weight, like, Naimov is a guaranteed featherweight fighter. You could see the massive size difference in there, and he lost the first round, came out and landed a crazy overhand right with Malarkey coming in a little bit sloppy. This was a phenomenal performance by Naimov, and to see the pictures of all of his fans in the Stocker Stadium cheering him on as well. They got that together quickly enough too on 2 days' notice. It was just a great little story and a great performance. And I think Mohamed Naimov is a guy that we need to be looking out for in the featherweight division. I'm sure he's going to fight on a full camp next, and he will be competing at 145. Obviously, this fight was at 155, was finished in the second round by TKO. And yeah, Malarkey will be disappointed to have let that one slip by.
Very much so. The Tajikistan fans don't mess about. That's one thing I'll tell you. I've noticed it before. They take this really serious. Those fans come out in numbers. It was 4:30 in the morning when he fought over there, and they were all lined out. It was incredible. I feel like Tajikistan will be a bit of a force in the future, and I think we're only seeing the kind of glimmers of it at the moment with these two. And Naimov really highlighted that with the performance, especially up a weight class. Malarkey more so the boxer. The two looked good. He looked really good in that first round, picking his shots quite well, having Naimov on the back foot. I feel like Malarkey was actually a little bit unlucky. One thing I noticed is, I'm not sure if you noticed, he dipped the head a little bit to the left quite a bit. And at this occasion, when he dipped it, Naimov timed it absolutely exceptionally, and then caught him on the way when he was on the way up, and that got the finish. And credit to Naimov for acknowledging or noticing that and then taking advantage of that. But I do feel a bit bad for Malarkey in the fact he was doing so well up until that point.
You call it unlucky, I call it sloppy, to be honest, because he was moving forward looking to level change, but he wasn't protecting his chin at all. He wasn't moving his head, and he left himself wide open for that shot. It was just a little bit of maybe overconfidence given how well he had done and how, strong and dominating he was in round one. But, it just goes to show you can't take anything for granted inside there in the octagon, because, he moved forward right onto that shot. And I think he would be disappointed when he's looking back that he left himself so open. But it was actually a question I was going to ask you, and you kind of alluded to it there, is the kind of MMA presence in Tajikistan. Obviously, you have had and done a lot of work on the amateur scene. Are they kind of becoming a force on the amateur scene? And that's why we're seeing a couple of these guys kind of coming in through into the professional ranks now.
Yeah, they've got I'm pretty sure the amateur team is state funded. They've got they're really, really heavy presence over there, and it's taken very seriously. They're fantastic, very similar type of wrestling style, that combat sambo you'd see in Dagestan. All very much high level. The ones I've seen, types of Otabek Rajabov, Javadan Mamadov, and the people, man. Oh my god, they're lovely. I actually, funnily enough, I meant to put it on before this podcast purely because you're going to talk about Tajikistan. They gave me one of their Tajikistan Mixed Martial Art Federation tops before I left Serbia, and I always appreciate that stuff like that. But they gave loads. They gave like shorts, rash guards, the whole shebang. But yeah, they do a lot of work over there, a lot of good work too. Their national championships are actually at the weekend there as well. So yeah, the future is very bright for that, and you're going to see a lot of them come through over the next 3 to 4 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see that as well. And obviously, two good, even Gaffarov in his fight against Castaneda, who was a great fighter, put on a great performance as well. And Naimov, of course, against Jamie Malarkey, up a weight class. I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about him. We were asking about performance bonuses, and Gaffarov and Castaneda didn't get one. It was Caceres and Pineda that got it. Jim Miller obviously got it. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. And then Jamie Malarkey and Naimov got the bonus based off that knockout as well. Brilliant performance, and great to see new blood in the featherweight division. Let's talk about Jinyu Frey versus Elise Reed. Not too much to talk about here. The
Jinyu Frey looked huge.
She looked very big, very big in there. Much bigger than she must have been on a pretty impressive strength and conditioning regimen before this fight, because she looked very thick coming into here. As a natural and a former atomweight champion for Invicta FC, moved up now obviously from 105 to 115. Where she would have struggled with a little bit of a size disadvantage, but not coming in here. She looked strong. She looked more aggressive than normal as well. You know, she kind of struggled maybe to get off her shots in previous fights, but it still wasn't enough. Caoilte, she dropped 2 out of the 3 rounds in a unanimous decision to Elise Reed. Started off really well, opened up the fight and kind of landed a couple of big shots. It was a big left hook from Ray from at the end of round 1 from Frey that probably she hit her Elise Reed with a couple of left hooks in a row that kind of probably swung her round 1. But Reed also landed damage on her back in that round and opened up a little mini hematoma over the eye of Frey. I think Reed did well to kind of come back from round 1 and to take up. I think she deserved to take rounds 2 and rounds 3. You know, Frey could get her down but couldn't pass her guard, and that was a big issue. And Frey did tire out. Maybe carrying that extra weight, carrying that extra muscle did kind of wear on her a little bit more. What were your thoughts on both of these women's performances?
I thought Reed actually there's a bit of work left to be done, but I was quite impressed with her. You can tell the kick, but as soon as she stepped out, because I hadn't seen her before, as soon as she stepped out into cage, I was thinking, I saw the stancing and kickboxer straight away. I can tell the snappy kicks, everything. And first round didn't look comfortable in the first round, and I was a bit unsure. I thought Frey was going to run away with it, but really came back into it and showed her style and really got comfortable into the fight. Kept Frey at bay with those like snappy kicks, used her speed really well. And even on the ground, she was throwing up that omoplata and she was threatening that quite a bit, which I wasn't expecting, but it's something that is clearly she's been working on and it clearly works for her, because someday she could land that. And obviously it wasn't last night, but she was fantastic when she was throwing up those submissions and those attempts. The one criticism I would have is Bisping said as well, she wasn't controlling momentum and she was off balance moving forward. So when she was moving forward, she wasn't she would almost like fall into Frey instead of stepping back or having your balance still. And that was the one criticism to have, because you'll pay for that against some big punchers in that division that moving forward. But it was a good comeback from the first round for Reed, and Frey, we've seen her time and time again, just looked a bit tired in that from the second round onwards, and just wasn't able to get the fight to where she wanted and to the ground, and couldn't get her grappling off.
100%. And in all of my excitement, I forgot to mention Jim Miller. It was let's go back there. It was on the main card. I completely skipped by it. Apologies for that. But Miller was unreal. It was great to see him get that finish against Jesse Butler. A guy at this late stage of his career going out there and picking up a 23-second knockout. Look, at Jesse Butler took the fight on short notice. He came out aggressive. He came out nervous, I guess, on his UFC debut, and that's understandable. But he learned a harsh lesson when he walked straight onto the left hook, and then another one and an uppercut after that. You couldn't say enough good things about Jim Miller, couldn't you?
No, not at all. He's just, it's hard not to love him. What's that, nearly 50 UFC fights? The man's fought on UFC 100, UFC 200. That man needs to be on UFC 300. He's the only one who can do it. It would be incredible. What a performance. He deserves a 50 grand bonus too. The man, he's a living legend of the UFC at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic for Jim Miller. And I hope we get to see him on that UFC 300. It would be quite the feat. That would be, that's a good one for a quiz now, a UFC kind of trivia quiz now in a couple of years. Who would be Jim? Probably would be the only fighter to have fought on all three cards if it does happen. But give him someone like Sean actually mentioned Jim Miller and Paddy Pimblett, which is a very interesting fight. What do you think of that matchup?
Absolutely incredible. I love it. Yeah, I think Paddy's due a test against an old, tough veteran in the UFC, and young prospects the UFC like to use the old veterans to kind of build the new prospects upon, use one name to build the other. And of course, Paddy has one or two. I think it's perfect. He could headline a card, co-headline a card, depending on where it is, what type of card it is as well. Yeah, I love that fight. Great call from Sean.
Absolutely, yeah. It'd be interesting. I really like that too, and especially with a Jim Miller who's coming off a knockout like that too, there'll be extra hype in there. And I mean that I do think that would be a competitive fight. I'm not thinking that Jim Miller would run through him whatsoever, but I think it's the type of test that Paddy needs next, especially coming back off an injury as well. So yeah, apologies to Jim and his fantastic knockout. I kind of skipped by that there. Thanks to Caoilte, kind of reminded me in the background there that we forgot it. So thanks for you. You should just have interrupted me straight up and say, "What about Jim Miller?" That's what Harry does when I forget every now and again.
I only copped it when we passed the main card. I was thinking, hold on a second.
Yeah, I thought we got through the main card relatively quickly as well, but how's it ever? We covered it and all is well now at this stage. Let's talk about the last two fights real quickly before we wrap it up, Caoilte. The Mont Blackshear took on Luan Lacerda, took home second round ground and pound knockout. We'd seen the Mont Blackshear a couple of times in the UFC. I had been impressed by his performances previously in the UFC. Obviously, he lost to Farid Basharat on his last fight, and then drew with Yusuf Salal in the fight before that. So picked up his first UFC win, and you could see the relief in doing so, but showcased a good bit of well-roundedness in that fight against Lacerda. Were you impressed with what you seen?
Very much so. I was very happy. He came out very high-like. He was bouncing that front leg quite a lot, and he was kind of snapping it up into the midriff of Lacerda. So really, I really liked the strike and thought he looked good. And then when it went to the mat, he was defending really well as well to stop those leg attacks that Lacerda was just like, he was constantly hunting, and which ended up being his downfall.
It kind of cost him his fight. Yeah, exactly. You said it exactly as what I had it written here in my notes as well. It was Lareda's commitment to the leg lock, which caused the finish and ended up being to his detriment as well. I mean, you can't be doing that, Caoilte. You can't be like, that's the dangers of the leg lock when you're using your two hands to try and secure that position. You're leaving your head and your body open, and he just kind of let it happen, and all the shots just slowly wore down on him. Blackshear was landing some nice shots to the body and then finished off with shots to the head. But it was the shots to the body that really opened up all of that exchange, really.
Completely. They were vicious every single time. Lacerda just he didn't want any of it. He was committed to that leg lock. He was committed to it. And it's such a risky game to be doing against while someone's just battering you. And he full on paid the price for it. And it's one to learn moving forward, because he showed Blackshear that he wanted to start going for his legs in the first round and then tried it again in the second. It was almost something like that Blackshear could almost have read at that point, and he did, and he got the win. He's probably, you know what, he could have been fighting for his UFC career at that point. A loss and a draw. If he lost that, I've seen fighters get cut for less.
Oh yeah, well, you're talking about shit hot bantamweight division there as well, man. So I mean, there ain't too much. There's like it's probably the bantamweight division. Like we were talking about good fights and good showcases, and think Blackshear, he showcased that last night, and along with the other bantamweights on the card as well. Like Blackshear, only 28 years of age. Look, it has some growing to do. It has to be said, but a good performance. But the bantamweight division, right across MMA, is probably the best division in mixed martial arts right now. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, country mile. But even in saying that, Caolan Loughran still needs to be in the UFC, and because he's up there with some of the best, and it's about time we see it.
100%.
The Irish plug in.
100%, but you're right. It's not even a plug. You're speaking sense, and that's it. We said the same about Paul Hughes as well previously. So I mean, yeah, we're hopeful that we will get an injection of Irish talent into the UFC pretty soon, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Last but not least, Caoilte, Philip Lins and Maxim Grishin opened up the card. Not a great fight, to be honest. I mean, this fight, Philip Lins moving down from heavyweight, he's looking all right. What annoys the life out of me is Philip Lins's his want to always want to close the distance and fight up against the cage in the clinch and just try and control. In the first round, this was so frustrating. When he got his distance and when he started landing his shots and landing on Grishin, you could see Grishin was not liking the exchanges. Those shots were hurting him. And similar enough to what we were talking like before, rather than keeping at that distance and landing the shots, Lins chose to kind of get into the clinch. And that was kind of the story of the fight here. It was like brief exchanges on the feet where he might land a shot or two, not working off of that and just choosing to go in and hold Grishin up against the cage. And I mean, it works against Maxim Grishin, but it ain't going to get him too far up anywhere else in the light heavyweight division with that kind of style of fighting. How do you feel about that?
I completely agree. It was rinse and repeat. I actually had him lose. I feel like he lost the last round as well. So trying to bring that into higher quality opponents that can, with very good fight IQ, I think they make you pay for it. His striking, I felt like he was constantly constantly looking to land the same combination of going to that jab to the body and trying to land that big overhand over the top. And that will be read soon enough, especially as you climb that division with some of the elite talents in there. So yeah, it seemed like the story of the fight was just the same combination, the same positions. Actually, one note was Grishin did land that beautiful spinning elbow.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
I thought he was very good with the elbows, and I thought that was a nice little moment. But it's moments like that. They're the glimpses of what can happen to Lins if he tries to keep doing the same thing. People will read this and they'll take advantage of it, and you'll drop a loss. But look, that's a 3-fight win streak for him now. Can't complain. Very well done.
There you go. Yeah, a nice entry into the light heavyweight division, and yeah, picking up those wins. But I feel this next one, I'm interested to see how he does the next time, because I've been watching him now, and this is what he likes to do in fights, and it's effective until it's not effective anymore, and it'll be only a matter of time. And it's the level of competition for me that's going to define how long it works for. And that kind of rounds us up for the UFC card. Overall, Caoilte, look, at obviously severe spotlight this week when Harry is away, so we won't have that on Monday. So maybe we'll hand you the mantle here now. If you had to shine a spotlight on someone from this card, who would have been your standout performer?
It's actually, at first I was thinking, oh, this is quite difficult. The name of one, it is quite difficult. Name of is one I think, okay, yeah, maybe. But Jim Miller. Can't take it away from Jim Miller. The old gritty veteran. No, I know he got an opponent on short notice, but to do that in that fashion, it was just beautiful. I'm gonna give it to Jim Miller.
I wouldn't argue too much. It was like
I
probably would have went with Naimov, to be honest. Moving up a weight class, taking it on short notice, you lose the first round, and then you come back and you find a way. You don't get disheartened. You don't give up. He sees you can see the confidence in him. Like, I think we have a good major player there now in 145-pound division. I'm interested to see what he looks like at 145. Will he have the same energy? Will he have the same power that carries down into 145? But like you said, with Jim Miller, it's a feel-good moment in MMA, which don't come around all too often. You know what I mean? Likely, you see the old vet that's fighting their 50th fight in the UFC. Normally, it's the young buck that's coming in and sparking out the old veteran, but the roles were reversed on Saturday night, and Jim Miller got the job done, and you can't but feel nothing but happiness for Jim Miller. And we forgot about him during the podcast, but we'll finish off with him then, for all due respect, on the balance breakdown this week. Thanks so much for joining me, Caoilte. Thank you for all your opinions, your analysis, and your breakdown of the fights. It was great to have you on. A fantastic substitute for Mr. Harry Powell, and hopefully we'll get to see you up here again, breaking down some more fights as well.
For sure, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me. And I didn't say it earlier, but congratulations to Harry on getting married, and I look forward to seeing him back in the show next week.
Big shout out to Harry and Imogen, and I hope they enjoyed their big day. Follow Caoilte de Barra at Caoilte de Barra MMA on Twitter.
That's Instagram, and then it's just Caoilte de Barra on Twitter. I should probably line them up soon.
Yeah, it mightn't be the worst idea, but yeah, follow him over there. You can see him also on the Owl Triangle this week as well, with the great Andy Stevenson, who's also getting married to her. Jesus, everyone is getting married, Caoilte and SevereMMA. All wedding bells lately. Hey, Andy, Harry, yeah. I'm tying the knot next year. You could be next, my friend. You could be next, or Shawnee or someone like that. Graham's already tied the knot.
I'm 25, leave me alone.
Enough said. That's the balance breakdown. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend. Head on over to SevereMMA Patreon account. Help us out there providing content. 5 podcasts a week we deliver over there. That's enough MMA content to see you through. Check out the preview show. It'll be a little bit of a different one this week. I will be on site in Vancouver for UFC 289. We're looking to try and make something happen there. I might try and get Spencer on for a bit of a live preview. Keep an eye on the SevereMMA YouTube channel. I'll be doing some videos. I'll be pestering people for interviews as well. So hopefully we can get a couple into the bag. We're looking forward to getting over there. Amanda Nunes, Irene Aldana, we'll do the preview for that, and we'll be back here on the balance breakdown next week to talk all about that card in great detail with Harry Powell as he returns. Once more, thanks a million to Caoilte de Barra for joining me today. This has been the balance breakdown. Thank you all for tuning in, and take care.